Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm just thrilled you're here today. Today, I'm sitting down with a dear friend of mine, Dr. Elizabeth Ball. We've had her on the podcast before, but today we're having a completely different conversation because today we're talking about the value of community and belonging and also what it's like to really start to cultivate and develop a relationship with a teacher, how important and vital that is. And so Elizabeth is the founder of Ashtanga Yoga Lisbon, where I will be visiting at the end of May. I hope to see you all there. I'll be there teaching Mysore for 5 days in Lisbon at Elizabeth's school. But lately she's moved into a new endeavor of bringing her school online. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about the movement, how COVID's affected the yoga community and the yoga landscape, the difference between in-person and online, and the value of both in-person and online classes, and our own personal experiences with building an online community as well as an offline community. So in-person and online is where we are focusing today. And we're going all the way to Lisbon, Portugal to have this conversation with Elizabeth. So I can't wait to jump in and get started. I hope you'll join me. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm your host, Harmony, and I am here today with the ever beautiful Elizabeth Ball. Hi, Elizabeth. How are you?
Hi, Harmony. I'm super well. It's so good to see you again. How are you?
I'm well, and it's so nice to reconnect with you. I forget what our first episode was, but it was early on. It was maybe 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I think if I remember, I think it was January even, like also the start of the year 2021.
Yeah, maybe even 3 years ago. Sheesh, that's a long time.
Yeah. Was it 21?
Yeah.
No, it could have been 22.
I think it was 22. Yeah. So if people want to hear all about your intro into yoga and all of your accolades in the realm of science and studying, it was such a great episode to
it was a fun one.
Dive in.
Yeah. It really was.
But today we're gonna go into something that I think will be really interesting for a lot of yoga teachers listening, because there's been a lot of shifts and changes since 2020. You know, I think that was a big time for us as teachers who were mainly teaching in person, especially in the Ashtanga world, you know, very much in person.
Totally.
And then all of a sudden everyone shifted to online.
Yeah.
And then, you know, last year seems like everyone shifted to some kind of hybrid online, offline business.
Totally.
And you yourself during this time kind of went through that whole transition. What was that like for you?
Yeah. It was a lot. For sure. I think it was more like trying to like keep yourself together in having to change through so many different like formats.
Yeah.
And I think like the biggest thing for me was that I was online since 2020, a bit like on and off when I could be, when there was the COVID opening.
Right.
Like the restrictions lifted and you could be in person. And so I started renting a few co-work spaces and studio spaces and building a small group there. And then needing to close again and having like a max of 6 people and 2 meters apart, you know.
Right.
All of that jazz which happened.
And
then coming around to last year, 2023, I started renting like full-time a studio space in like the center of Lisbon. And I think I was like so excited to finally have like a space to just be in all the time.
Yeah.
That then I learned, maybe 6 months in, that I was like, oh, okay, gosh, this is quite a lot that I'm finally like doing again.
Yeah.
And I kind of came to the realization that I don't know if I was in the same space that I thought I was going to be in like 2 years
prior. Yeah.
I think I'd wanted it for so long. I had been on pause a bit for so long, being able to do it, that then when I moved in person, I think I thought to myself, you know what? I don't know if I'm really in for this full time, like all these classes every day, coming here, waking up, 4:30 every morning, arriving there, different changes in my personal life. And I think I really miss kind of just having the platform of online again.
Yeah.
And a little bit just that space to just create, So I kind of went like through quite a lot of different changes, I'd say, during those years.
I mean, it was interesting because I've kind of been with you a little bit through some of these changes, especially because you came into my B School Mastermind and did B School with me last year. And right at that point, you were like finishing all your online stuff and really focused on creating and building this in-person Mysore program and bringing real bodies into your space. And then since then, you've kind of been on this really interesting journey of recognizing that maybe that kind of structure and rigidity to having to like show up and be in a place and do the whole early morning thing and, have such constraints on your time, like on such a regular basis, is not really how you want to live your life anymore.
Yeah. And it took me, honestly, Harmony, I know we giggle about it now, but it took quite a few tears, quite a lot of conversations with my partner, with family members, like a lot of kind of thinking about it, because honestly, it's what I knew for so long. I'd worked in a shala, for 10 years. I'd built a whole community there. I'd worked up to 3 Mysore classes a day, used to packed rooms of like 30 students, that I really thought like, I just want that. Like, I really want that again. But I knew I wanted to create it differently, which was like me being the principal teacher and me creating, a relationship with the students and being able to finally be there in person. And at the same time, I moved in with my partner, not far from the studio. And I think it just was like, oh my gosh, I'm just not there again. I'm just not in that time in my life where it's not that it's just me and that's all I'm doing, but really like in the sense of, I don't know if I can devote all my time to just being in the studio space and having these really early starts and kind of being whacked out for the rest of the day and then your own personal practice. And I just thought to myself, no, it's not really what I really want. And it took a lot of time to really digest that. And it was only when I took a bit of a step away when in the summertime and I went to England, I was chatting with my older sisters, and one of them said to me, like, really simply, like, it's okay, Liz, to just need different things now. You're in a completely different place in your life. Like, it's okay. It doesn't work for you. And it just kind of gave that like relief of like, oh, it is, because I really thought that's the only way that I can really access students or support students or create a community. It had to be in a shala. That was it. That's the box of what this needs to be. And I know also this from your experience.
I sure do. Yeah, it's a hard transition. I'm so glad that you brought light to that, because I think a lot of teachers really struggle with this. And even practitioners, we bought into this idea that to be a good Ashtanga Yoga teacher, or to be even an Ashtanga Yoga teacher, you have to get up at 3 a.m., do your practice, teach your Mysore class, starting at God knows what time in the morning, 5 a.m., 5:30, 6 a.m. And if you're not practicing before, well, then you better practice right after, because otherwise it won't happen. And all of that really requires a lot of dedication and commitment, which is great. But like you're kind of alluding to and pointing to, it really is for a very specific stage of life or somebody who's chosen a kind of lifestyle that excludes kind of any incursion or any infringement from the outside world or people who aren't in that same kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think because I'd come from that and that's what I had done for so long, it was really for me this sense of like, that's how it needs to be, right? And then I really struggled with then trying to find the balance at home. And I would try to go to bed like 9 o'clock. And then there would be my partner making dinner, my stepkids coming in for like football practice and maybe like, sorry, I need to sleep. And I just was like, I don't feel good with that, you know, like first I'm not in for that life with them, but I shut them out and just need to wake up at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And in the end, I was just realizing that I was losing out on that family time that I had so long hoped for and then now had and was so looking forward to, that then I started kind of migrating to going to bed later and later, but still waking up earlier and earlier.
Right.
And then I came to a point where I was just exhausted like most days. And then I just thought, somebody's got to give, you know, sorry to quote the film title, but like something had to give. Something had to give. And I also knew like at that time, I was hearing also from some students who were going through life changes, such as a few of them had to leave the center of Lisbon because rental prices here just became completely bonkers. And so they also were then not able to travel into the studio anymore. Some students then were preparing to have a baby in their life. And some of them were going in a really heavy phase of work. And I just kind of was, for the first time, really starting to just see the students I had and listen to their needs. And I felt like I can't impose on them that they need to be here every day because their life is also not asking them to do that. And nor should their yoga practice really expect them to do that. So kind of midway through the year, I had this kind of thought of, I really want that to be a yoga platform or a way that I'm supporting these students who choose to practice with me, which I'm so grateful for. And I love having them. They're beautiful students. But a way that actually they're even more supported when their life just needs to change, you know, and a way that their yoga practice can naturally support them through those changes and be something that they can include in their everyday without it being this almost guilt fest if you don't do it like 7 a.m. Monday to Friday plus a weekend class, you know. I just started seeing more and more that there is some students who are like that and fantastic. But my life also was saying to me, I can't teach in that way anymore. So let's find a way that your students are able to show up. You're able to support them around the hours that you can also be available for them in a rested manner, that I'm not like exhausted and trying to be there in class, because I really hate not being able to like do my best work or be my best self because I'm tired and because I just made a decision that in the end actually wasn't what I hoped it was going to be.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And it's a real, maybe not recognized problem or like not talked about problem within the Ashtanga Yoga method.
Yeah.
Everyone recognizes it maybe and knows that it's there, but no one's really talking about it. This practice is so demanding. And when your life starts to change or something in your life changes, like all those examples you just gave, having a child, a different kind of job, having to take care of aging parents or having an illness or having teenage children that don't go to bed until midnight. Like all these different stages of life, our spiritual practice or self-care practices, our yoga practices need to be flexible. Like we need to also
Totally
have that flexibility in our life to change and adapt. And the Ashtanga method, as it's traditionally taught, as a lot of us have absorbed from our culture, really doesn't allow that kind of flexibility without feeling like you're failing. Like you're not good enough. I should be better. Why isn't this working for me? Oh, I just need to work harder, get up earlier, right? And these aren't actually the truths about the situation.
Yeah. And that's it. And I was seeing that, and I mean, like, I love my colleagues who have lives like that. Like, I love the kind of ability to do that. And if you make those choices, like, and it works for you, like, go for it, that's fantastic. But the only kind of flip side of that I was hearing with people is actually like they become mothers, or they're having life demands, and their practice just falls like at the bottom of the pile. And that's what I was also seeing in students, and really wanting to kind of have this way that they're still supported, and totally this, like, take off of their shoulders, like, that you're a bad Ashtanga student because you're not doing any of this. Because then what happens is people just stop showing up for practice. They just say that I can't make it work anymore because I can't be at that place at 6:45 and need to finish like by 7, And so I just thought, you know what, if I was having this conversation with, let's say, like Sharat, or like, what actually would he be saying to me? What would he be advising? Because let's also bring yoga into the world that we live in. Let's still try to make it meet people where they are. Let's also allow them to create this personal practice that they need. And it still be traditional. It still be part of the lineage, and just encompass really like what their life needs are. And that's it. Like, I had this kind of like light bulb moment where I have a number of students who I teach one-on-one, and they are online or in person. And that format is much more of a conversation. That's much more, how are you feeling today? How was your week? So-and-so came up, I've had this huge work project, And so I also kind of felt there's so much more that I want to like share to a student, and just give them more tools and more resources that are outside of the yoga mat to support them getting onto the mat in the first place, which we know is really hard, and that's like a challenge in itself. But also just to kind of answer those questions that are naturally going to come up when life changes, or there's a big work project, or something happens, because something will always happen. And I just felt there's like this space where in the Mysore physical classroom, I just felt that I was like muted a bit. I was like, oh, but there's so much that I want to like say and support and help you on. And so I started kind of boiling inside myself, thinking, an online platform, a resource, a community, a space to share, discussions, or guided classes when you have 15 minutes, or at the end of your class, you've had a tough day and you want to have a relaxation as well, or you want to do a meditation. And so I just kind of kept thinking about these things and thinking, I know it's not really like a Mysore room as such, but it is yoga, it is definitely a space where somebody is coming to connect again to themselves, to find that peace, to find that space to breathe, to feel good. But at the same time, it's meeting them where they are, or it's anticipating where they might be in life. And it's really what I felt I wanted and I needed. And I thought, like, there's room for this. So let's give it a go. So at the moment, like group classes, I shifted from the start of this year in January. I launched the online Ashtanga Yoga Lisbon yoga membership. So that has like the plans of group classes. So there's up to 3 weekly Mysore classes. And then around those ones, that's morning or evening. So I actually teach more classes than I did in person, because more options, because then that also really works for me around family and timeline and schedule and things like this. And then the idea is every so many months to be in person, kind of like an intensive in Lisbon, but that be able to meet all sorts of students. You don't need to have a monthly membership with me. You don't have to commit to doing a month of classes. You can just drop in for a few classes or drop in for the week. And then there's also my one-on-one students that I'm with in person or online, depending on their needs as well. So the main kind of group classes are now being built online. And that's it. Like, I realize, and of course, you look around, you see what people are doing, what are the type of students that they have, and unfortunately, mid-20s, I mean, some students with me are students and they have that flexibility and etc. But I think there may be like a number of years that you can do that and you feel great doing that. But then, like me now coming into my end of my 30s, the idea of just doing that for like the rest of my life ahead of me, I was like, I'm not going to sustain that. I'm going to like burn out. I'm going to be super tired. And also like, it doesn't really for me feel a balanced life. I did that for so long. And I never created time when I had that type of teaching schedule for friends, to go out, to take holidays, to see family, to be able to go back and forth a little bit to England, to really make family life and creating a family life a priority, as well as absolutely adoring the work that I do. I thought like it needs to be one or the other. It's so hard to find the balance as an Ashtanga teacher. And so I really thought like there is a way. Some people do this. It might be a little bit outside the box, but let's just give it a go, because I'm sure there's people out there who are saying like, I really need this. And that's like, I love my Ashtanga practice and I really want to keep doing it, but I just need a more flexible timetable, or I just need a different resource than in-person group classes at a really set time that feels a little bit unattainable. And kind of, as you said, like this sensation that if you can't do that, you're not an Ashtangi, you're not really committed to this practice then. And that felt hard. That felt like you're being pushed aside a bit. And the feeling I had, and like, I love the platform that you have, Harmony. Like, I love like from being with you in B School in February, like having now access to the inner circle. Like, I just love seeing what you share, and you have such a huge strength in philosophy and sharing all of that. And also the feeling I had was sometimes that's only ever restricted to when you can be in person. And also, for instance, let's talk about it also sometimes not being affordable for somebody to go on a retreat every year and to do those things. And sometimes these are really important aspects that deserve to be discussed on a weekly basis, or that you can just drop in and listen to a workshop on that, but it's still with your teacher. And this is a feedback that I got from a student of mine in the start of the year when I was sharing like a yoga nidra, a meditation, gentle things, with this that I've done myself over the years. And then and then a lead class, like I have like a full primary lead class on the membership, for example, or just lead standing, so 25-minute type of class. And the feedback she gave me, she said, it's just so nice hearing you teach me all those different parts. I don't have to outsource them to somebody else, And that for me felt like, okay, like I'm giving you that extra support that I think is really necessary, because on some days, maybe you have 25 minutes or you have 20 minutes for an asana practice, but you also maybe need a little bit of just support at the end of that or the start of that. Mm-hmm. And that may be just listening to a quick 10-minute meditation, or on that day, on the weekend, as opposed to doing a physical class, you want to have your philosophy class like you offer in the inner circle and things like this. And I think there's just so much room to share really what off the yoga mat means to your on mat practice.
Yeah.
But also that everything you do off your mat is really part of the other 7 limbs of Ashtanga yoga as well, because we all talk about 99% practice, 1% theory, but like, let's kind of expand what that 1% means, because I think, there's just so much to explore there. And a lot of the discussions I have with students brings in those types of concepts and just, I think, soothes them and saying you are absolutely still doing a yoga practice if that's what resonates with you, if that's what makes you feel good, if that's what motivates you to include this in your daily life. But also know that, hey, that does look like being kind to your family member and creating time to spend time with them. I think like I had that experience also through the last few years, and I was spending also quite a lot of time in England. My mom wasn't very well, and I was having to change my yoga practice to like be in the hallway, be in the kitchen, be in neighbors' kitchens, be in a church hall. And I was, even where I am now, sometimes I'm in my stepkids' rooms, I'm in like my room, in the living room. But I think it's totally that sense of when you've cultivated it within yourself, your surroundings really don't matter, because it's actually what you're attaining within yourself, or the sensation that you bring within yourself through a breathing practice, through your asana practice, that is really what you're there to hone. It's less about it being in a beautiful space and that only space, because, I have some students who are with me who travel a lot for work, and I've taught them when they're in hotel rooms or they're at home, but they know that sensation of the yoga practice is really what they're there for. And it doesn't matter where they are in the world. It's what it's cultivating in them, which calls them to do it. And I think it's really that part of the yoga practice that may take some time to understand, but kind of, I'm still a baby at this, but like the more I do it, the more I realize in my experience last few years that that's what it's about. I can do this wherever I need to do it, but I'm just still feeling that sensation for myself. Yeah. And growing that and learning that for myself. Yeah.
I think then it moves you into more subtler areas where you can just like drop in and like experience it. You don't need to do namaskar, right? You can just find, oh yeah, that's that space. Okay, I'm there. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful once you kind of know the path, and the path is well tread.
Yes.
And so at the beginning, it takes maybe a little bit more energy and effort to, figure out how to get there, how to find your way home.
Yeah.
But once you know how to find your way home, you can, you don't need to think about it so much anymore. Like create such a restrictive kind of situation for yourself. You can be more free and easy with it, and like also enjoy your life.
Really, really. And I remember once like putting this out in a newsletter and kind of trying to say it in the kindest way, which is like not to have attachment to a particular place or your mat or those things. But if you find it sometimes hard to practice, if you're not in a particular place, let's just gently open that up and ask why. What are you, what do you need the room also for? What do you need other people's breath for? What do you need? Because of course it's fantastic. It kind of makes you just click into focus much quicker, let's say. But also, can you cultivate that within yourself? There is like so much more learning that's available in kind of an online platform space, or in a space of trying to create it for yourself in your space, whatever that looks like. And so there is kind of a place to just learn about that as well. But it can be a wound. It can be quite a scary space to go to.
Yeah. And I think it's hard if you're not used to practicing on your own, to doing self-practice. It's hard sometimes to create that habit in your day, in your life, of showing up for yourself. And that's, again, where I think an online platform and having a connection to a teacher, like even one particular teacher online who's like a live human person, not just a recording necessarily, right?
Yeah.
Cultivating this relationship is really helpful because there's some accountability there, which we all know increases your success 100%, because you're going to show up, even if it's just to like do 5 minutes or to drop in and say hi, and start to create that habit for yourself, because you have that community, you have the teacher, you have a place or an appointment that you've made, and so you're more likely to show up and keep that appointment. And I think that's really powerful, especially, like when you're traveling or practicing at home. It's hard. It's hard to maintain.
It is. Totally. Yeah. I mean, I have my teacher online who I absolutely adore. And wherever I am, I love the sensation of like, they're there, like whatever's going on in my life, they're there.
Yeah.
And that's what I try also to do, whatever's going on in my students' life.
Yeah.
I'm there online, that's still a sacred space. It's still a complete space for them to be a student, or for me to be the student when it's my term. And I have my teacher, and definitely you kind of like, somebody clicks in you differently when you just know you're being, supported or observed.
Yeah.
Totally. It's really, really necessary. Yeah.
Yeah. So another thing that I was thinking you could really shed some light on because of your expertise and what you've studied, and I was reading about this, and even in my own experience, I've noticed like when your nervous system is dysregulated, it's so much harder to like, I don't know if it's motivate or just like create that space to start to regulate, right? It's like you almost kind of get out of the habit or the vibe or the wavelength of like regulation, and now you're just like busy working or stressed or anxious. You know, I think this is why people find it so difficult to meditate, is they're like, they can't just sit and like be calm and quiet because they're so agitated in their nervous system. And it's actually like a really physical thing to have to come back into balance.
Yeah, totally.
How would you recommend, like, how do you think like having an online platform or having this space can really help people or help a student who is maybe feeling dysregulated and like out of sorts and not really able to create that time and space for themselves to breathe or to do their yoga practice, you know, their asana practice, or to meditate? Like, how is it more supportive maybe than a studio space, an in-person space?
I think there's like two parts to that. One, I think, is the need to know that it's a priority. You know, there's a need to say, actually, I need to do something about this. And that already, if you can understand the why you need to do that, that's also like a really important motivation that's going to help you keep doing that. And then I think the second part is being really realistic of what you can attain or achieve or reach each day. And if that's 5 minutes, that's already great. And like you can work with that person for 5 minutes. And so I would say just get those two things quite clear. And the why can be, for instance, you know that through the day you start to feel like little heart palpitations, or you find you can't breathe quite easily, or you get kind of a bit like a brain fog at work, or you kind of zone out for a bit. And that can become quite scary. And sometimes some students come to me from recommendations from doctors saying this needs to change. And that's their number one motivation. Like they know they need this. And then from there, the second step is, okay, how often can we meet? Or how often can you realistically set aside time through your day and allow yourself for that to be different? For instance, some people have this in their head that it has to be first thing in the morning. But often I'll say to somebody is if your day is really busy, will you find it more beneficial to switch off at the end of your day, which is going to aid you to sleep, you know, which is going to aid you to relax easier, enjoy your meal better at night because you're not in this kind of survival mode where sometimes you don't digest food very well, you know, everything is linked. And so it's more meeting that person on a personal level and saying, okay, let the yoga meet you and let's understand what you need with that. And then if somebody comes back and says, okay, I'm going to really try to set 5 minutes apart at night, the first thing I would also then focus on is let's find a way to discharge that energy. Because a lot of people with hugely active lifestyle or really heavy work, really heavy, let's say, you know, demands in life, caring for another person, things like this. The outside noise is so loud that it's really hard to find your inner voice. And that can also be like, what are you saying? But it's also in the sense of let's just learn how to quieten that noise to begin with. And once you learn how to tune in and listen to yourself, you might start to hear things which are a bit scary, you know, which is heart palpitations. Actually, I get a headache 3 times a week, or I really struggle to sleep. I have insomnia. I wake up at 3 a.m., you know, things like this. And then you can start seeing, okay, those are the habits and that's the patterns. And let's just try to really gently change this over time. And also, I think, be really realistic at what that might look like. And that may be working together for 3 months. It might be the sense of let's just do this and see how you feel after 6 months. It's also just being really realistic to the person. And a lot of these people who I think have a bit of this dysregulation, it's also knowing like the support is there. You know, it's possible, it's available.
Yeah.
And so an online resource I would say is I have some like 10-minute meditations on my membership. And I would say, let's just start doing that 3 times a week. You know, let's just set aside 3 evenings a week where you're going to make that your priority.
Yes.
And that's going to be your evening routine before bed, for example. Or a super one that I think you also love, the alternate nostril breathing, you know, such a fantastic regulator to your nervous system. Literally 5 minutes, you know, before bed, start introducing that in the morning if you can. But I think the really biggest thing for me, which I've started changing a little bit over this last, 6 months or so, or before from working with one-on-one, is really meeting the person where they are and kind of drawing the yoga to where they are. What's your needs? And let's just build your practice around that.
Yeah, I love that. That's so important. It's been interesting with my son. I have to drive him to school, 2-3 mornings a week sometimes we have to leave the house at like 6:50 in the morning, right? So yeah, it's like before 7 a.m. He has to be there at 7 a.m. or just after 7 a.m. So
gosh, that's early, yeah.
Yeah. So it really like doesn't leave time to, even if I'm up at 5 a.m., which I am, it's a sort of like the whole, making sure breakfast is happening, making sure lunch is packed, making sure he has what he needs, and then doing my own, like showering and, all the things.
Taking care of your own stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's time to go. And again, it's sort of one of those instances where you can fight reality. You can say, okay, I can, I'm going to fight against this and like be angry and upset that I'm not getting in my, desired practice time that I want to have from 5:30 to 7 or 7:30 in the morning, right? Which like on an ideal day, that's going to happen.
Yeah, totally.
Or you can just say, okay, these are the days that this is my morning practice, and it has to do with making sure he needs to be where he is. And then I can go for a nice walk, watch the sun come up, come home, maybe I'll do some work and then practice later in the day, and often on those days, like I love practicing at 11:30. And I don't know, for me, like that's like my favorite time to practice is like noon hour.
Yeah, mine's around 10 as well.
Yeah, it just like suits me for some reason. Like, some mornings I will do a morning practice, and I do like those also. But, on the busy days when morning and life just kind of starts happening, I really like to kind of have like that afternoon reset,
For sure.
It feels really like, okay, I've done everything that I can do for now. Now I can like focus and breathe and move.
Yeah.
And create space. And then like you get the second, like part 2, it's like a little intermission in the middle of the day.
Totally. And I think like I learned also that if I like pretended that wasn't happening in the morning and I wasn't needed to make sure the kids had a decent breakfast and that they remembered the book or whatever.
Yeah.
And I like shut myself off and did my yoga practice. Most of my yoga practice would be either feeling guilt that I wasn't available for them, or that I actually could do it later on, but I felt that I had to do it right now. And I think it's also like giving yourself that like grace period, of saying it's totally okay to do this. If I know that I'm going to have however long to myself later in the day, and I'm actually going to be able to be more present for my family member in the morning, and then I'm going to be even more present for myself in the afternoon because I've done what also was whatever necessary or felt good, or, you wanted to put your energy into it in the morning. Yeah. I realized that actually that's more yogic than whipping myself because I didn't do that in the morning, and then having not a great practice because I did that, and then the person not having my support. So I also kind of learned from doing that, and then being like, wait up, Liz, there's another way I can do this.
Yeah, exactly. It's so, it is interesting, right? Because sometimes when we have that rigidity in our understanding of practice and yoga, instead of it, like you say, creating ease and creating a peaceful feeling or joy and contentment with the moment and whatever is arising, it creates more resistance and guilt or distraction or, and so it's, again, like not really a good yoga practice then, because instead of being with what is, you're like fighting against what is. And it's like, okay, well, that's actually not helpful.
For sure. And then there are some times like on a weekend where I know like, okay, they're probably going to sit on their iPads for like half an hour, 45 minutes. Do you need me? No. Okay, see you. Yeah. And I'm going to go away for half an hour, they're not going to miss me. Everything's going to be fine.
Totally.
And so it's also a bit like, learning from experience.
Yeah.
And also I think for me, I felt, I don't think this is going to sound correct, but like sometimes just kind of having me to take care of in a yoga practice, it's then kind of what else is on a priority, what else is also important. And I know that if I can schedule this in later in the day or at another hour, it's totally going to be okay. And other things are just equally important, or on some days are more important. That's also okay.
Yeah.
I think it's just being more gentle with yourself and having a bit more kindness, a bit more grace toward your yoga practice.
Yeah.
And letting, as I said before, the other limbs come in.
Yeah.
Like, what am I really here for if I'm going to be snappy and frustrated and even a bit annoyed at that person that they've taken my time from my yoga mat away, It's also like, let's just turn that around,
Yeah.
really see what am I trying to live as a yoga lifestyle, let's say 24 hours of the day. And I think that often gets lost or is only put on specific times of your life where there is another priority, rather than saying actually that sometimes can be all your life for a very long period of time, and it's necessary to find a way to just live with this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious, like also with your science background, it's so interesting, this idea of sleep, and that it was also something you noticed for yourself, like, oh, wait a second, I'm totally burning out. I'm literally burning the candle at both ends, expecting myself to wake up early, and I'm still not getting to bed, till later. And how I feel like in those cases, when you're forcing yourself to, wake up at 4 a.m. and maybe you're not getting to bed till like 11 or 12 or something, right? It actually is causing more harm to your body, to yourself. And again, like if we look at all the limbs, ahimsa's, non-harming or non-violence. And so you're completely going against the whole essence of yoga, which is like to heal and to nurture and to create union and balance and harmony within yourself. You're actually kind of, destroying your body because you're, again, sort of not having maybe realistic expectations
for sure
on yourself.
Sure. And I think speaking to those of us who have a yoga practice, I think we are really good at knowing what works for us and what doesn't. And we're really clear on kind of routine. And I know for me, I pick up really easily when I'm off balance.
Yeah.
And so what I started noticing is kind of, let's say, 3 months into teaching at the studio, 5 a.m. wake-ups a little bit before, then 5 a.m. walking there, walking back. At night, I just remember I started to feel like quite anxious going to sleep, because I would be starting to count down the hours, like, okay, I have 7 hours, 7.5, 6. Oh my God, I'm not sleeping. I have to wake up, da-da-da. And then I started noticing that like on the weekend, I would just sleep until like 11, which is bizarre for me. I very rarely sleep beyond like 8 o'clock.
Right.
And so I knew my body was literally just accumulating all those missed 2 hours of the days and just adding them onto my weekend.
Yeah.
And so I just started noticing that kind of more and more. And then when I was away on holiday, like in the Easter break, I just slept good for, let's say, 3 nights. And I was just feeling like I'm a whole new person. I've just literally woken up as a whole new person. And it wasn't really until I had those like 3 8-hour nights that I was like, oh my God, I feel so different. And I kind of knew that I was missing a good chunk of like 2 hours a night. But I hadn't really realized how important they were until I had like kind of clocked that it was because I was doing this on a regular basis. And so really importantly, what your body does every night, it basically works as a clock. So every hour or every so many number of minutes, your body does a scan around your body. It's where it repairs things. It's where it restores what's necessary. You get deep rest. You get deep muscular rest. And so if you're interrupting that on a regular basis, your body is not having the time to actually repair, restore your energy and wake up refreshed. So when you do wake up with less number of hours of sleep, you wake up more groggy, you kind of feel like, oh, I haven't rested. And you just kind of, and that knock-on effect of just feeling tired and then more tired throughout the day. For me, it just kept feeling up. I was just kind of like backlogged with so much stuff. I became less available emotionally. I just started feeling like everything was annoying me. And I know some people do this. And for instance, my sister gave me an example of somebody who then would take like a 2-hour nap every day, if that's attainable. There's ways to pick it up, but it's also not the same as having like a consistent good 8 hours a night.
Yeah.
And so I think it just, for me, I knew coming from a background of science, with health and understanding that, I thought to myself, long term, I'm going to do more damage doing this. And I'm trying to teach somebody to live a healthier lifestyle. I'm trying to teach someone to take care of their body, but I'm not doing this, And then when I am there and I am teaching and supporting them, I'm doing it kind of like 75% to my capacity because I'm also not doing this.
Yeah.
It just, it just started to kind of not make logical sense to myself. And it's tough. And I know sometimes it's hard to attain a good 8 hours a night. But I know, for instance, now I wake up like 6:30 to prepare for my 7 a.m. class, 10:30 at night, 10, I'm already in bed reading my book. And I just feel that I'm so much more relaxed dropping to sleep because I know that the quality of sleep I'm going to get is there. And I'm not inducing any extra anxiety because I'm not getting the number of hours of sleep that I need. And so it just becomes kind of a snowball effect.
Yeah.
And then you get eventually knock-on effects like insomnia because it just becomes a very difficult cycle that unfortunately your body creates as the new norm, and then it's really hard to get out of. So try to pause that as soon as you can. Yeah, I would say.
It's so interesting. I've often looked at some of the, tenets or precepts that Ashtanga yoga practitioners we kind of developed or bought into, especially, when you're in like the Mysore kind of scene and you're doing this practice as like a daily ritual and there's like some kind of unhealthy patterns that we take on.
Totally. I mean, it's one thing, like I remember when I'm in Mysore practicing and we have our like 4 a.m. classes, totally you can go to bed at like 6, and you switch your 8-hour rhythm to something else. That's something different. But like if you're really kind of just straining yourself and sleeping 5 hours a night, 4 hours a night, some people say, I can function on that. You might mentally be able to, but underneath your body is scrambling. Your body sometimes is really struggling to really cope with this. And that can also look like high irritability or kind of the sense of you just switched on all the time. And some people say like, I'm more productive in this. And I'm like, you might be, but that's often a lot that you're just running on adrenaline because your body actually hasn't restored itself. So you're having extra type of impulses in your body like adrenaline, cortisol surging to give you that energy. It's not actually rested energy that's available to you. So there are some difficult traits to holding this practice if it's like waking up at 4 a.m. and challenging yourself in that way.
And there's some, and long term, like you said, it's not, those aren't great patterns to get into because it starts to create all kinds of other issues that at a more like physiological level, you can start to develop autoimmune, you can get adrenal fatigue. Your body starts exactly like having problems at a physiological level when you've gone like years without sleeping properly.
Totally. And sometimes I say this to students, like a nice way of saying is it may have been giving you little signals. It may have been trying to chat with you and you just ignored the talk. And then eventually it's going to start shouting at you. And that's like those things, insomnia, the inability to switch off, constantly being kind of on a buzz.
Totally.
Yeah. A lot of that is all system regulation, nervous system regulation, endocrine hormonal regulation. But often if kind of the lifestyle that you also can lead plays into that, be switched on, be alert, do everything, be busy, attain it all. Okay, maybe you can do it for some of years and then you're going to get a burnout or you're going to need to go on a yoga retreat to kind of reset that, It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then they're gonna have to sign up for an online platform, an online community.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what we were trying to reach. Totally.
No, it is interesting though. I think there is a shift in culture, in the way teachers are teaching. I've seen it in the meditation spaces, in the personal development spaces. It only makes sense that it's happening in the yoga spaces as well, which is moving to practice and study with a teacher online, within their community, within their group. Our technology makes it so accessible.
Totally.
So easy for it to happen. I think your practice really grows and deepens in a different kind of way when you stick with one teacher.
For sure.
You can still enjoy the teachings of other teachers, but really when you have sort of a teacher that you're connected to, that you can talk to, that you have a relationship with, it's like having a coach or a mentor in your life.
100%.
And so much value comes from that. We were talking a little bit about that before the conversation, your experience working with a coach and just having someone in your corner to really be with you and help you make, movements towards your goals. It's really transformational when you have that kind of relationship with another person who's helping to guide you along the way, right?
Totally. And I think I never really understood that, I think, until the last few years of my experience having my teacher online and really understanding that having somebody that you just know is there, that's going to show up, is professional enough to be there, provide the resources that you need, whatever kind of goes up and down and shifts in your life, they're this constant. And it's like your yoga practice is a constant, but the person who meets you with your yoga practice as your teacher also as a constant just means that any fluctuation that happens, you can kind of deal with it. You know that you have them there, and as you said, that they're in your corner. And I think it's always somebody that maybe is a few years ahead of where you might want to be in your yoga practice. But there's something in them that just resonates with you, that builds a trust, that builds confidence. And for me, life experience as well, in the sense of writing them a message and saying, at the moment I'm going through this, and they're saying, maybe not the exact same thing that they've gone through, but they're saying, I understand, or let's just shift this up now, let's just move to your asana practice like this, or okay, let's just pause this project for now and start working on this if it's your coach or something like this. But I think just having somebody there, I feel so much more supported in my physical practice, knowing that I can tap into that whenever I need. Plus also just knowing that really whatever I hope to do or I dream to do with my business, with my coach, or in the sense of what I need to shift and change in my business, I've got somebody there who's saying, yeah, we can do that. I totally have the resources to offer you to help you do that. And I think that just feels so supported, and is also a really grounding thing to have.
Yeah, totally. That's so wonderful. And I think it's something that we missed a little bit as a yoga community in some ways. Going to Mysore, practicing with Patabi Joyce or Sharat Joyce, it's not like you can email Sharat. You can email him, but you're probably not going to get a response. And if you do,
most likely not. Yeah.
I'm going to question how well he knows your life and how well he knows you. Right. And so, it's nice to have this pilgrimage or these places to go to do your practice. But when it really comes down to it, I think the value of having an actual teacher, an actual mentor or coach, or someone who's in your life, who knows you, who you are developing a relationship with over a period of time, who can really help to kind of ferry you through those challenges, through those life difficulties, through these transitions that come up. It's so important. It's really you can't put a dollar amount on that value because it's so helpful.
100% agree, 100% agree. And I think in terms of having a relationship with Sharat, I think it's really subjective. It's really in the sense of how many students might be in the shower
one
on that
way.
day.
It's one way though, too, right?
Yeah.
Like, trust me, I've
Totally.
I practiced there
of
a
course,
lot of
you know it
years.
like way more. Totally. And in that sense, it's also being like really realistic, in the sense of he's also kind of like training or offering, that authorization to teachers to help him filter down to as many students as he can in his way, because it's not attainable for him to have that relationship. And in that sense, it totally is that, like having somebody as your teacher show up and you start a practice and it's kind of not what that student normally looks like, or you see something's going on and you may say like, hey, did something happened with your neck last night? Oh yeah. You start to build that relationship where that person just understands you and starts to get to know you. And that is like, it's gold, it's just so lovely to feel that support. And I've had it myself, being a student to my teacher for the last 3 + 4 years. And I think it's finding a teacher who can do that support online as well. I think that's a really important thing. And I think it's even for me, as a teacher teaching somebody online, I'm even trying to like look more closely, because you're seeing them, you're watching everything. I just think it offers just such a lovely platform to really understand and share. But it also does require the student to step into that level of trust, or to start to gently show themselves or be available for what that might look like on an online platform. Because I've had a few students who I've never met in person, but I know them on a really personal level. And I think they feel the same about me, if you're listening and you know who you are. Because we've had some conversations only online, but there's a deep level of trust because you're there for them. You're consistently there for them. And you're providing a resource that meets their needs. And me having that experience as a student, I know what I need, and I try to also convey that. And I think it's also, such a wonderful resource, because it's at your fingertips. It's there, and it can really meet you where you are, in your life.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you in person soon. At the end of May, I'll be in Lisbon teaching.
I cannot wait.
Yes, with you at your school.
It's going to be a wonderful time.
Yes, and we'll get to...
Yes, we've been chatting about online, but we are so excited, that in May we do have the 5 days with you, which is just going to be like fantastic. Yes. So that's already on the...
some of my online students who have been working with me since 2020, who live in Europe, in other places in Europe that I've only met online. I know some of them have already booked to come to Lisbon, so it's a hot spot. It's a good place to come to for the retreat or the intensive, and it'll be really great to
it will be so good,
be in person and get those physical adjustments and go deep into the philosophy. I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too, Harmony.
Lisbon's such a beautiful city.
It is. And I think this is like end of May. I think it's 24th to 28th that you're here. It's also starting to come into like the June festivities, which is the month of the celebration of Lisbon. The weather's pretty, stable at that time. It's always nice. And I think now, let's say the last 5 years at least, Lisbon has just boomed. There's just so much to enjoy, like culturally. And I think like as we were planning this, just knowing that it's going to be such a great time in the city. And also to make it like a really super event in person. And a lot of the workshops that we have are also geared towards chatting about this, around your yoga practice, bringing your element of the spiritual side, understanding that there's so much more off your mat to help you on your mat. And I think it's just so nice when you have this online platform to then have a space in person so that people can then come together and meet each other. It's going to be really special. I can't wait, Harmony. I'm so glad you're coming. Thank you.
Beautiful. I'm excited too. So it'll be a wonderful time of festivity. Online people coming together in person.
Totally. It's going to be a merge of many
wonderful
things.
Fantastic. Beautiful. Well, tell everyone where they can find your community and find you online.
Sure. Thank you. So on Instagram, my handle is Elizabeth Ann Ball. So at Elizabeth Ann Ball. And you can also find it at Ashtanga Yoga Lisbon. So they both have their Instagram profiles. Plus, both of those also a website, Elizabeth Ann Ball or Ashtanga Yoga Lisbon. And the membership also can be found from the website on there. And there's various different plans that you can look into as well.
Perfect.
So yeah, connect with me. You can email me, send me a message from there as well. And I'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful. We'll put all of those links in the show notes too with this episode, as well as a link to the workshop. So
exactly.
Come one, come all. We got something for everyone.
Totally. Exactly. Yeah, registration is open. And also, let's say, I don't know if this will be up, but probably it will. The early bird offer for our workshop in May ends on, I think it's March 24th, if I'm not correct, if I'm not wrong. So early bird offer to sign up for the workshop is until March 24th. So yeah, try to get in and join us until then.
Yay. Yeah. Few days left.
Exactly. Fantastic.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me today. It was so nice to connect with you.
And you. Thank you so much for having me. I've loved the discussion. Thank you.
Well, wasn't that just a wonderful conversation? I loved it. I love this idea of building a really strong online community. I personally have been involved and am still involved in several online membership groups and communities. And they have really helped me to focus on building my business and also create accountability and support and generate ideas from like-minded individuals. They've been a real resource and help and a real healing place also for me. Meeting with other teachers, yoga teachers, coaches, people who are in the wellness industry, it's been a really, really valuable resource that honestly, I don't know I would have sought out had we not gone through that really challenging time of COVID where we were all forced to go online. But I have a really amazing offer for you because I am opening up a brand new Finding Harmony community online. I want to take everything off of Facebook and move it more into a private space, a personal space. And so I would love for you to join. It's a free community. There are paid options for more classes and more connection, but just to join the community, to have the conversations. This is where we're going to have more conversations about each episode after the episodes have been released, and maybe even some bonus clips or different things that we can talk about, we can connect on. All things yoga, all things Ashtanga Yoga, all things wellness, health, and healing. This is where the conversation's happening. So I would encourage you to find my Finding Harmony community online and join. I can't wait to say hello to you and welcome you inside. There's some questions and polls, and this is the place that it's all going down. So I look forward to connecting with you more inside the Finding Harmony community. Thanks for being here. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.